What's up, YouTube? This is Elder Stacy Sanders. I'm coming to you again with another video. But before we get into the video, I just want to say on my YouTube channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and like all the videos and hit that notification bell so that you get all the updates when we release new content. And I want everybody to know that that have subscribed and watched the videos. I want you to know that I am grateful, humble, and very, very appreciative. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, and I just want you to know from me to you that we have much love and much respect for you. In this video, we're going to be looking at black home ownership from 2005 to 2018. We're going to be looking at black home ownership from under George W. Bush, President George W. Bush, President Obama, and President Trump's administration. And we're going to be kind of taking a look here at the numbers and see what we have here to see what maybe where we can improve at, and see where maybe there was some issues that took place in the housing market. I wish that this graph would have went back into President Clinton because they started that what do they call it, the Great American Dream, where they really started to push home ownership and where home ownership had really began to climb. But we see here at this chart, and as we take a look at home ownership in the United States of America, at 2005 starts the second term of President George W. Bush administration. So we're going to just take a look at here. The Great Recession of 2008 caused black home ownership to plunge from 46.5% to 40.7%, and it only just started to recover during the last year of the Obama administration. Now, I don't know, most of you, a lot of you, if you're in the United States of America, for those of you that will be getting education if you're in other parts of the world. And we also want to appreciate, since we have that global platform, that global reach, that everyone that watches me from United Kingdom, India, Vietnam, and all these different places around the world, I want you to say, if I forgot your country, charge it to my head, not to my heart, that we really, really, really appreciate you. You're going to get an education on home ownership in the United States of America between these particular time periods. But those that remember the Great Recession here that began when the housing bubble collapsed, which almost toppled economies around the world, and most certainly here in the United States of America. But leading up to this home ownership, I do remember people getting home loans. I have some family members that got loans to purchase homes during this particular time, where they were only making $40,000, $50,000 a year, and they was getting approved for loans for $300,000, $400,000. And then what people did not also understand is that they had these after 5 years or so, that these mortgages were going to balloon, interest rates are going to balloon and skyrocket to the place where they could not afford it. To pay for the housing. But when you do things like that, and you temporarily inflate or make it appear that a market is growing, the bubble, and we reach these bubbles, and after a while you keep blowing air into a balloon, after a while that balloon is going to pop. And that's what happened in 2008. I never will forget it. A lot of us was affected by the 2008. For even those that are in the church community, I've told people at the time, we live in this world and we are affected by what happens to the world. If you live in this country, you're eating a lot of processed foods and things of that nature. They're putting chemicals and things, stuff like that. If you're in the United States of America, you are probably guaranteed to die from some form of cancer with everything that takes place in this country. So we live in a world, we are affected by what happened to the world. And I remember my business back at this time, I lost over 60% of my income during this 2008, 2009 period, and towards the end of 2010, then I began to rebound. Things began to rebound, and I started to recover. But when this happened in George W. Bush administration, home ownership of black home ownership was at 45.8%, and it rose to, and about halfway through 2006, to 46.5%. But then we began to see that decline here when the bubble began to burst. And at this point in 2008 is when they really began to call it a recession, and we kind of see that home ownership began to decline. But one of the reasons why home ownership and some of these communities began to climb is because people were getting bad deals all through this time period. African Americans were getting bad deals. So from really around 2000, 2003, 2004, it only took about 5 years before that bubble began to burst. When you're getting these people getting approved for loans that they just simply cannot afford. There's always a reason. There's always a cause. So what I'm saying that to say this: when it comes to your personal finances or resources, if someone approving you something for something that you know you cannot afford to pay for, do not be gullible and fall for the bait. And always pay, always purchase, always pay for things that you know you can afford to pay for. Don't get yourself caught up in these type of trends and systems. Is what happened here. People was gullible. I remember a lot of people was gullible. They got approved during these time periods back here when during there was purchasing those houses, and then they all began to lose those houses during this particular time, or either just simply abandoning them once those rates began to climb. So during the Bush administration, we saw that right around here, about 2007, we began to have that steep decline and people losing their homes, foreclosure, things of that nature. Okay, and when it began to improve, I knew it began to, it got better for me in terms of being in business, is because right around 2010, that 2010 point, right around here, where you had people who had considerable income begin to purchase these properties en masse, but a lot of these properties were abandoned. They was full of mold, and the business began to improve for me personally, because we was doing a lot of mold remediation, either for people to foreclose on the houses, or sell the houses, or to buy the houses. So it was a good time for me doing business between this particular time period. But people was just walking away from their properties and homes, and I know people that was doing that. But that was under the Bush administration. But then it began, President Obama went into office with a lot of momentum, a lot of young people, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, but the economy was not improving that much. There were some changes that was being made, but as you see here, black home ownership was still declining from 45 to 43 to 41. All through the Obama administration, black home ownership was declining, where we could not afford. Of course, once this happened, credit began to get messed up, different things like that, and they started to tighten the belt on a lot of things, which made it impossible for a lot of people. Some of the charts we're going to look at, we're going to be taking a look into that. So all the way through the last year, as you see here, of President Obama's administration, then the market began to start to climb go back up again. And some of this have to do with some of the stimulus money that was put out there to kind of like soften, cushion the blow of the recession, to kind of help things begin to turn around a little bit more during the COVID. The monies that was given out during the COVID would have helped if they did the similar thing during the Obama administration, but they put a lot of that stuff into infrastructure, things of that nature. And well, those people were not the ones losing their houses or anything of that nature. But I think that during that period of time too, to me, it came back to being fiduciary, being responsible, financially responsible for getting ourselves into positions that we're going to get trapped in later on. We made a video about how to determine how much you're going to be paying for an automobile. We went through the numbers, kind of showed you what to look for, and hopefully you can go back, find that video on that if you don't have that knowledge there. But that same principles could have been applied here when purchasing a home. But during the last year of the Obama administration, it began to rise. And as you see here, went from 40.7%, and then in the beginning part of the President Trump administration, African-American home ownership began to go back on an uptrend to 40.4%. So the change began to implement, will be beginning to be implemented, and change will begin to take place. And a lot of that did happen too once you started to get certain tax breaks, different things like that, once President Trump got into office. Okay, so let's take a look at, we're gonna look at another chart here in just a second, but housing in Black America. And this is something that we really also got to understand too, that many working class Black Americans struggle to obtain affordable housing. And the percentage of Black homeowners decreased between 2005 and 2017 from 46 to 41.4%, where it remained unchanged in 2018. Much of these losses can be attributed to the housing crisis, where so many Americans lost their houses to foreclosure. This also means more than half of all Americans do rent. And we're going to see that in the chart here once we get to it. But what's even more alarming is that the fact that 56% of renters spend more than 30% of their income on rent. And this is down from 59% in 2012, but still up from 53% for 2005. Listen, let me just tell you this. it gets difficult. Now, it may be easy for someone who has additional resources, income, who are maybe high earners and things of that nature. But but for those of us who have not always been in the positions that we are now and know what it's like to have at one point struggled in our life, paying over 30% in housing, 35, 40, some people even 45%, paying out half of their income, their gross income, just to have a place to live, it makes it difficult to number one, pay for medical benefits, to buy food, pay for car notes, rent, utilities, and things of that nature. It gets very, very difficult, and we're living in a particular time where it looks like that housing, the cost of rents are constantly going up, not going down, and it's just creating a problem. People's incomes are not going up, but the cost to live is continuing to go up. And I've always been a proponent of not just working, but have your own. And so you can provide a lot more revenues. And I do understand that's difficult for a lot of people, but it seems like everybody has to start becoming more entrepreneurial in their mindset to have more than just one particular hustle. And if you're going to make it in the time in which we're living in. All right, for homeowners, the percentage of households spending more than 30% of their income on housing had increased to 43.9% and decreased from 35.9% in 2017. Although this is lower than it is for renters, it is still higher than the national homeowner average of 27.5%. Most people are paying 27.5% for a living. If you're paying 30%, I think 30% for housing is kind of steep when you factor in your gross revenues, you take out taxes and other expenses. You have nothing. It's difficult for a lot of people. That's why most people don't even have $400 in a savings account. $400 not going to help you if hard times hit. It just gets difficult to survive, especially surviving on just one income. All right. So let's take a look here. Having to use so much of your income for housing makes it much more difficult for African Americans to make ends meet, especially since they have also experienced a large increase in the median gross rent from $820 per month in 2012 to $920 in 2017. Also, the median value of homes owned by African Americans increased from $122.2 thousand to $153,000 in 2017. But let's take a look at this chart here. Take a little look at this chart here. African American housing statistics. Let's take a look at here. Okay, housing. Occupied housing units for African Americans are over 14.8 million, while it's a total of 120 million in the total population. Housing tenure. Owner occupied housing units is 41.4%. The national is 63.9%. Renter occupied housing units is at 58.6%. You have almost 60% of all African Americans, they pay rent, they are not home owners, compared to 36.1% nationally. Owner characteristics. Median home value is $153,500. The national median value is $217,000, about $60,000, some odd $1,000 more. Monthly owner cost, median selected cost with the mortgage is $1,360 and $1,513, and that's because almost $60,000-$70,000 more. But you may have a house that's valued at $60,000 to $70,000 more than the average African American, but you're only paying an additional $200 per month. Without a mortgage, it's $396 to $417. Okay, now monthly owner costs as a percentage of household income. All right, less than 30%. People who pay less than 30% is 64.1%, compared to 72.5% of the rest of the country. People who pay 30% or more, 35.9% compared to 27.5% for the rest of the nation. Rent, median gross rent is $920 compared to $1,012. Renters as a percentage of household income. All right, this is the part I wanted to get to. Less than 30%. All right, there are 43.7 African American that are paying less than 30% on their household income and rent, compared to 50%. Half of all the rest of the country is paying less than 30%. Who pays 30% or more? 56.3% of African Americans pay above 30% in housing of their household income and just having a place to stay. And you wonder why you need mom and dad to work, or you wonder why, if you're dealing in the church community, why people make a decision to have roommates or to live with people or to shack up. And I, since I'm talking about on the Christian side of things, these are the numbers. These are the things that we really have to consider. We have to take into account. We have to address these things and look at these numbers. They matter. You want to know why? Why are people shacking up? It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to say it with an understanding. Now, am I saying does it make it right? No, but what I'm saying is knowledge is power. We need to understand why. Now that you understand why, what can we do to assist people in the future going forward? How can we help provide? How can we help assist? I'm not talking about just giving away, but I'm talking about education. Teaching people. We need to teach people about to become financially fiduciarily responsible, how to create wealth for themselves, and things of that nature. So this is how you empower people so they can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. All right, like that old saying, teach a man to fish. You give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, he can feed himself for the rest of his life. So let's give people the tools that they need to be successful on their own. So we have over half, 56.3% of African Americans pay over 30% just to have a place to live, while you have 49.5% of the rest of the nation. All right. Okay. Now we're gonna skip this units and structure. I want to look at this year structure true built. Okay, because we want to see what type of housing out of the people who own homes, out of the 14,800,044 African Americans that own their home. Let's see what the condition of those homes are in. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, people who own homes, that live in homes that are built in 1939 or earlier, you have 12.7% that live in houses that old. From 1940 to 59, you have 17.6%. Homes built from 1960 to 1979, 27.3%. From 80 to 99, you have 24.4%. And from 2000 to 2009, 13.2%. From 2010 to 2013. Now, when you get into the newer or the earlier edition homes, as you can see here, majority of the people live in older homes. All right. Now, when you start to look at this about affordability, because of the housing market and that goes into it, and you see from houses that are built in 2010 and 2013, it significantly drops to 2.8%, and of 2014 or older, 2.1%. So that says that most of the people that go out and purchase a home, they can only afford to purchase these older homes. All right, right down in this zone here, that 24, 27, 17, and 12. But then when you get into the newer constructions, then less people can afford to purchase those newer constructed buildings. Okay, states. This may be interesting to a lot of people. Let me kind of see if I can need to open it up, but we'll just go down. There's one state that's left off. States with a high black home ownership. Let's take a look at this. You'll find this very interesting. Percentage of black owner-occupied housing units for states with black populations over 100,000. The top 10 states with the most black home ownership. This surprised me with South Carolina. In South Carolina, I would have thought it would be right here. I would have thought that this would have been number one right here. Okay, South Carolina, 52% are of owner-occupied housing units have black owners. And Maryland, 52%. Mississippi, 51%. Alabama, 51%. Louisiana, 49%. Georgia, 47%. Virginia, 47%. Delaware, 47%. Florida, 47%. North Carolina, 45% black home ownership. Okay, and the worst places with black home ownership, let's look at this here. We have Arizona at 35%. Rhode Island is at 34%. New York, 31%. Washington, 31%. Nevada, 29%. Nebraska, 28%. Hawaii, 27%. Wisconsin, 25%, 26%. Minnesota, 25%. And Iowa, 23%. So there you have it. The places that have the highest percentages of owner-occupied housing units for the states with a population over 100,000 African Americans, you have the top and you have the bottom 10. All right. So if you want to move to somewhere where you know that there's a lot of high ownership for African Americans, you want to be looking at South Carolina, Maryland, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Virginia, Delaware, Florida, and North Carolina. All right. And here's the ones that top the bottom of the list. Okay, but that's it for this video. Just looking at black home ownership. I just want to throw those numbers out there for you. And just always remember, as I say, as Jay-Z said, men lie, women lie. These numbers do not lie. So please, on my YouTube channel, subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that notification bell to be updated for all of our new releases. Until next time, like I always say, God bless.